Welcome to Discovering. Well, it's that time of year. That time of year for hiking and biking. That time of year for cookouts and camping. And it's that time of year when my buddy Mike calls me up and says, let's hit the river for some smallmouth.
We're looking at post-spawn fish. People say, well, after you get in a post-spawn, whether it's smallmouth, walleyes, or whatever, those are hard fish to catch. They're not easy fish to catch, but they're very catchable fish if you learn how to fish slow.
And we'll take a look at the Menominee River State Recreation Area Plan. All that and more, so sit back, put your feet up. It's Monday night and time for Discovering.
The secret streams that flow beneath the cliffs of colored stone. Forest thick and healthy with birch and pine and oak. Surrounded by the greatest lakes this world has ever known. The black bear's awesome presence as he roams the hills and fields. Call of the timber wolf, the loon's lonesome trill. The eagle soaring high above, the trout lies deep and still. These are what I treasure, the only way I measure feelings that I have for this fine land. There is so much to discover when you're a long-time lover of northern Michigan.
It was a perfect spring morning. Sunshine, no wind, quiet. Even the bugs seemed to leave us alone. The kind of morning you wish could start every day. I was back on the water with my good friend and fishing guide, Mike Mladenik. If you remember, Mike is where I got my start in the TV business. There's always a couple things I can count on when hopping in a boat with Mike. I always learn something new, and I've never been in a boat with them when the fish weren't biting.
Oh, he got off again.
Today we were after post-spawn smallmouth, and as usual, finding and catching them was not a problem.
That didn't take very long. Oh yes. Light bite. Fooled him. He thought he was eating a crayfish, but instead he got my little wacky worm. We take fish like this all day long. Oh yeah. Beautiful river smallmouth. Go back and get a bigger one. What they're doing is these fish are all completed spawning, and they're not very far from their spawning areas because they're feeding on crayfish. And this wacky worm, you see, it's kind of like a green pumpkin with some gold flecks in it. It might not look like a crayfish to you or me, but basically we're imitating a crayfish with these colors. And a lot of these light bites, it's not that the fish don't want to hit it. If you watch a smallmouth, when they attack a crayfish, it's just a short little nip, 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 nip. And that's what you got to kind of wade yourself through that. And hopefully, you don't want to give the fish too much time because then they can swallow the bait. But you don't want to set that hook too quickly because then it just turns the fish right off. It's one thing nice about this river fishing. I don't need a big, expensive boat. You could do it in a canoe if you got a nice boat too. It's accessible to so many people. It's nice to catch those big giant fish in the Great Lakes, but a lot of people just don't have the boat for that kind of fishing. I'll show you as I rig up this wacky worm, the advantage to this O-ring. See how it slid back up the line with that fish. Now if I would have hooked this directly through the worm, guess what? I'd have still caught that fish, but the worm would have broken in half and I'd be putting another worm on. You say, oh, what's a couple of worms? But you come out on a day like down the river, you catch 20, 30 fish. You only go through 1 pack of worms instead of 3 or 4 packs of worms. And that could add up in a year's time. But just a wonderful thing. And again, I'm really a firm believer in the red hook. And to make it even more enticing, I even add the red O-ring. How can a self-respecting smallmouth pass that up? Today we're dealing with smallmouth. Spawning is completed, so we're looking at post-spawn fish. People say, well, so you get in a post-spawn, whether it's smallmouth, walleyes, or whatever, those are hard fish to catch. They're not easy fish to catch, but they're very catchable fish if you learn how to fish slow. Biggest problem most bass fishermen in particular have, they want to do everything fast. That's good when the fish are active and aggressive, but right now we're dealing with the post-spawn. I've been catching a lot of fish, but you gotta learn to fish slow. But then people say, ooh, they're biting real heavy, and that's a mistake that's made by a lot of fishermen. All of a sudden you catch 3-4 fish, okay, I start speeding everything up. No, if anything, after you catch 3-4 fish, I start slowing down because I just caught all the fish that are active right away. Sometimes you go into a spot, there might be 10 fish in there, bang, 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 you catch 3 or 4 right away, so that's good. But now I want to catch the 4 or 5 other ones that are in there feeding on all these crayfish. So what am I going to do? I slow myself down. Slower means more fish. I got them this time. Little fish, but that's okay. Not that small, but when you're used to catching 4 or 5 pounders here every day, it's... There we go. When you're getting a bite over here and you're watching them jump in front of you, like I said, I take this all day long. Oh, this is a dandy here. Might have to use the net on this one. We won't try to grab the line and bring that into the boat. Oh, yes. That old wacky worm that I'm telling you, get over here. Hard to beat it. That is a dandy smallmouth any place. That is a beautiful fish. Look at that, huh? Beautiful fish on a little wacky worm. Let him go back, and then we got to get a bigger one yet. I was starting to get a little bit edgy there. I had made about 10 casts without a fish. Come on up. There we go. This one doesn't want to come up. We're a little deeper water than we were before, but that... I like that. Jump right in the net for me. Let him go. He can go swim right back in the shade. Get in there, buddy. There. Ah, little guy. And again, look at that wacky worm, goes up the line, unhook the fish. I must have caught 10, 12 fish on this same worm. Oh, yes. This is a nice fish. That's one thing, when they hit these wacky worms, you don't know if it's a big fish or a small fish, a light bite, and it's a pretty good sized fish. Oh yeah, big wide fish. I like it. Might be the biggest one so far. If I get him in, that's what we're looking for. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's a monster. Nice wacky worm. Take away that hook. Slides up the line and I can use it again. Beautiful fish. Everybody likes to catch fish, but let's face it, everybody likes to catch a big one. I always recommend to my clients, even if we're catching a ton of fish with a wacky worm, we always got at least one rod rigged up with a topwater bait. So a lot of times, you know, you get some of them soft bites, or even you see a boil and you know there's a fish there, boom, you throw the topwater bait and you got a pretty high percentage chance to get it. And another thing is, sometimes it can go work both ways around. If I'm fishing with a topwater bait and I'm missing a lot of fish, then I throw the wacky worm there and I catch the fish too. So keeping that in mind, it's good to have a topwater bait and soft plastics very accessible to you at any given time. Oh, that's the part of topwater fishing that you just got to accept. You don't catch them all. Got that one. That don't happen a lot. I got lucky this time. Usually when they hit a topwater bait one time, that's it. If they miss it, he wanted that thing. And you know what? There's more crayfish coming out of that one's mouth too. Nothing like a smallmouth on a topwater bait. Especially a nice fish like this too. Oh yes. That makes the whole day. That's a beautiful fish. Topwater smallmouth. Don't get no better than that. That one hit that topwater bait right away. I love it. Oh yeah. Oh, that's a good fish. That is a good fish. Now you're never going to get this topwater bait out of my hands the rest of the day. I can see that. That's a pig. Topwater smallmouth. You know, there's been a lot of days on the water with a topwater bait. I might not catch the most fish of the day with a topwater bait, but a lot of days you catch the big fish of the day with a topwater bait. All you got to do is get them into the boat. That's the problem. It's definitely the biggest one so far today. Oh, yes. That made my whole day for sure. You got to use your pliers with this. That is a nice fish anywhere. Topwater smallmouth. You know, we're dealing with post-spawn smallmouth today, and let's face it, they're not real aggressive generally. They hit topwater baits, but you got to work it slow. Most guys have a bad habit when they fish topwater baits, fishing way too fast. See, I'm just popping it a little bit, let it stop, little pop, let it stop. When I'm popping it though, I want to get plenty of action. I don't want a little. I got that prop on here and it attracts them. And the other important thing is this particular bait, this little Hubs chub I got, when I stop it, it's sitting vertically in the water. They're attracted to it. They see that drop. Sometimes I just itch it a little bit like that and then they come up and they hammer it. I've also got hair on here. And this is pretty important with smallmouth. Whenever you're using a topwater bait, whether it's just a popper or if it's a prop bait like this, you should always have some feathers. Like this is red, that's my favorite color. Even white, yellow is good. But never use a topwater bait that doesn't have some sort of dressing on it too. This color here, probably my favorite, green pumpkin with gold flakes. This one, watermelon red. It's basically watermelon with red flakes. Beside working on the river here, I can catch bass with this color. I don't care if it's a clear lake, stained water lake, real dark water. Another color that works real good is if you're on any kind of stained water, whether it's a river or a reservoir, anything with copper in it. Drop it in the water, really shimmers, and people say, okay, why are these fish hitting that? That doesn't look like anything. Whenever you're using these type of baits, you're imitating a crayfish, whether you think so or not. Obviously, these do not look like a crayfish. You're throwing it tight to the shoreline. It's dropping very slow. And when a bass sees this, basically in their mind, they're assuming that that is a crayfish. But sometimes the more flake that you have in stained water, the better off you're going to be. If I'm fishing on a clear water lake, I might use something, I don't have any right here right now, but say just plain watermelon or plain green pumpkin without the flakes. So in clear water, you don't want the flakes, but in the stained water, you want to make sure you have these flakes. That was fast. We moved the boat to a new spot and catch a fish right away. I like that. Might have to change color worms just to use something different because I sure ain't losing them. Nice fish. I watched that fish come up and grab it, miss it. Now, I'm not saying for sure it was the same fish. It could have been another one. All I know is, oh, quick release. And that's something. He hit that top water bait twice. He wouldn't commit to it and throw that wacky worm in there and got it right away. Crayfish coming up. The more I fish, I've been fishing for a long time, let's just say that. And I love it more every year. Things like this makes it all worthwhile. Nice little fish. That's another one up. Crayfish coming out of its mouth again. That's about the 5th fish. I've seen pieces of crayfish. We're dealing, these fish are in the post-spawn. They've already spawned out. And everybody thinks that after spawning, these smallmouth just take off, they go down to deep water. No, they don't, because they're spawning around these rocks. These rocks are loaded with crayfish. So they spawn, they go 3-4 feet, and they got breakfast already. Just a perfect situation. So there's no need to panic when you're in post-spawn. It can be the fantastic fishing. If you can find some areas where you have crayfish, smallmouth are on the feed. There we go. Either that's a big fish or he's real spunky. Oh, I love it. Whoa! Gotta love it. Ooh, that's a dandy. That's a beauty. There's one behind it too. Hard to see in this stained river water, but there was another fish behind it. Probably a bigger one. Oh yeah. Sometimes I think it's that red hook too. I talk about red hooks all the time. It's like people ask me, do red hooks really work? I said, I can't guarantee they work, but I think it sometimes gives you that little edge. You know, after all, we're trying to mimic a crayfish with this, and crayfish usually have little red spots on it, so it's good advice whether you're fishing for even panfish, use a red hook. That's another thing they do after spawning is complete. A lot of these bigger bass, they find wood and they hang real tight to wood. Even if they're not feeding, they're not far from their actual spawning areas, but they're just hanging tight in the wood. Oh, crayfish come out of his mouth again. Look at them all. Holy cow! That fish was hiding in that wood because its belly was full. Oh, that one was underneath the pine tree. A decent fish. I fooled him. He thought he was eating a crayfish and eating a wacky worm instead. River fish are really pretty, you know, they got a little darker color to them. Bars, real pretty fish.
The Department of Natural Resources recently held meetings to discuss the Menominee River State Recreation Area Draft Plan. The meetings were designed to provide the opportunity for residents and other interested stakeholders to review and comment on future land and recreation management for the Menominee River State Recreation Area.
We've created a draft management plan for the Menominee River State Recreation Area, and we've done so in cooperation with the state of Wisconsin. And today we're presenting that draft plan to the public for comment, because we know that the users, the people that are local and are familiar with the site and with the recreation that occurs on it, is the expert. So we're asking them to inform us. And what we're trying to accomplish is a state park or a state recreation area that has one look and one feel. So if you're in Wisconsin, it's the same as it is in Michigan. Each unit has a Michigan component and a Wisconsin component. So the northernmost unit is called the Piers Gorge unit. And what that is a really dramatic, scenic waterfalls and gorge setting. And the public likes to go there to have a picnic, to walk and see the falls and the river. But also people are really interested in being there for on-the-water recreation. And it's a very popular destination for kayaking and whitewater rafting. So we're looking at what exists now, and we're trying to create a management plan to best manage that property and its recreation into the future. A second component of it is the Quiver Falls unit, which on the Michigan side is here in Faithorn Township. Now, going a little bit further south, the state of Wisconsin has included a Menominee unit, which includes the Menominee Falls as well as the river corridor going down almost to G18. So we're looking at all those units, trying to preserve the natural and scenic beauty of the corridor and complement it with recreational improvements that meet the demand from the public. So for example, at Pierce Gorge on the Michigan side, we've already made some improvements. We've performed fee collection so that we can generate some revenue and invest back into the site. In addition to that, we're looking at constructing defined paths, improved paths to scenic viewing locations, whether it's the falls itself or whether it's a falls viewing structure so that there is railings and a sense of safety and security as you get to the edge of the bluff and look down on the falls. Also to recognize the canoe, kayak, and rafting recreation that's occurring on the river, we're looking to develop or improve river access sites. Down south of that, on the Michigan side, we're looking at constructing trailhead parking lots so that the public has a place to park, again, potentially vault toilets or fee collection so that we can generate some revenue and reinvest into the facility, but then also define trails so that people can hike in and have a hike in or canoe, kayak in camping experience. Also, we want to provide access to hunting, to fishing, whether it be from on land or from on the water. There's some rustic or backcountry campsites that we're looking at creating, which would be hike in or canoe in. In addition to that, there may be in the future the need for drive-in camping. Another recreational opportunity that's occurring in the area, and we're really looking for public input on how we should meet it, is ORV, ATV use within the region. Right now there's a lot of evidence within the property of that use, and we want to make sure that it's compatible with other uses.
As part of the planning team, we've got both Wisconsin and Michigan staff here, and it's great to be able to share resources on this project and to also be able to collaborate in a very timely fashion on the Menominee River State Recreation Area to show the public that we are pushing forward with these lands for both outdoor recreation and conservation uses going forward.
Well, that's it for this week. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week right here on Discovering.